always guess these people when they're born, they're not being or genitals or adults. This has to be like a science fiction fairy tale before they're all happy. See, like the one nigger, I'm not a racist, but my heart's been really terrible. Ever since the Korean War, see, the nigger, he has to be able to read the mind of the five-star general. And when the nigger walks up like a wonderful sergeant, and this is what sometimes even lieutenants believe. I've learned this through television, even though I've always been a civilian. And the nigger disobeys the order. He doesn't care what race or religion that nigger is. He understands it's the sergeant nigger, of any race or religion or citizenship. And the lieutenant, he's a very powerful man. And he goes and he points his finger at the nigger and he says, arrest that nigger. Because that nigger, he disobeyed the direct command to my face. And, that's when they're wearing uniforms and they have, like guns and everything, and the war's going on. But I'm trying to tell you why some people aren't socially acceptable. But when they hire the 25% immortal lineage person, and he's probably like me, and he can't read a mind unless somebody does what they call project their thoughts, and I never begs or ask people to use, or any immortal being, to use psychic power. I never tried to enslave any type of an immortal being. And when the sergeant's standing there, and he's turning in documents, and the five-star general's sitting there, and he's wondering why the nigger, and probably is maybe, I'm not trying to insult these people, Sergeant Ray, maybe a congressman or senator's son, from anywhere the past, 50 years who was maybe drafted, or something. He's wondering why that an animal is reading his top secret little brain and why he can't win a war. Of course, I'm not saying anything about General MacArthur and how he was enslaved by Harry Truman and simply not allowed to win the Korean War, according to a coast-to-coast television show I saw, where he just basically threatened Harry Truman with winning the Korean War. He said, listen, Harry said, we have to win this war. Basically, this is what the story was. This is a little different than what happens to a little tiny nigger that sometimes the lieutenant goes like this to it on the battlefront in Vietnam. Oh, where did that animal fly go that's been selling heroin? Oh, there he is. I seen him. Now, if I don't shoot his brains out of his head because I had no evidence on him, as soon as General Charlie start firing ammunition at me, that nigger's going to murder me, and I'm going to be a dead corpse, and I was maybe any person from anywhere in the United States, and he acts like he got his fly swatter in his hand, and in the middle of a firefight, if he's out there, he puts 5 or 10 bullets through the nigger's head, and he blames it on the General Charlie's, because there's a big battles going on at night, and he knows that the nigger's going to murder him, See, lieutenant's ranks had the highest amount of casualties in all of Vietnam, and that's why that they died. Most of them, it was because the sergeants, American sergeants, took them through the head. Because they were interrupting their heroin business. And when only there's 5 countries, baby, to get heroin from back then, and most of them weren't at war with the United States, if they're only getting 30 times the amount of money returned on their money investments from maybe Mexico, or according to the full-length Hollywood movie, The French Connection, they don't like that, because my brother told me that they were get paying $1 per gram, not my brother, for heroin. Now, he's a German citizen. I don't get involved with heroin and shit like that. But, it doesn't bother me. It does, because, I just never tried to buy it or sell it. It just, for me, like, it never existed. And it doesn't bother me, like, even in this house here, if I didn't know about it, if there was 500 pounds of that shit piled up in the laundry room where nobody, I've never looked at, because that wouldn't involve me. Because I don't know it's there, and it wouldn't bother me what country it comes from, and it wouldn't bother me, what type of massive wealth per kilo, as them people say, maybe $50 or $65 per gram nowadays, that people were doing, because, simply, it's not my work to either buy that stuff or sell it. And, when I was a 12-year-old, I wasn't victimized by, hey, go on, Sasha, she's got a chicken bone, you better get it out of the mouth. I didn't know she was getting in the trash. She'll choke on that. She got into the trash there.
No.
See, like when I was, a 12-year-old, one time some people walked up to me in the city park, and they looked like detectives, but they were young men. And they just walked up to me and they said, talk to me for 1 minute. Some people haven't been very kind to me during my life. This is before I learned that the CIA, sodium pentophiles people, and injects them and trains their brain to do misdemeanors, real misdemeanor crimes. And they find felons that way. They train their brain like they're a robot. like they're on anesthesia in a hospital, you know. And they just said, talk to me for 2 minutes after my dad. No, I think I was maybe 14-year-olds. 14-year-old. I can't remember. But anyways, they told me for 1 minute. I didn't know these people from anywhere. All they said, I thought it peculiar. That's the only reason I remember this, is because I never, in a big city, seen people that don't know each other from anywhere and just walk up to each other and very soberly, you know, acting like university grads, say, oh, you are excused from buying heroin, as though that they were detectives, because they looked very conservative. They looked like 1960s greasers, you know, looked at, you know, very conservative-looking, short-haired people, young men. And I, you know, of all the conversations I've ever had with people, the only ones that I bother to remember, I don't know why, is the ones that seem unordinary. You know, like the way the common university graduates talk. And I just didn't know, and I was thinking, you know, my dad told me about sodium pentothal, but he never told me how it worked. And he never told me how people are historically, maybe 100 years ago, I don't know if it's true or not, were what they call mesmerized, or they were put into hypnotic trance, or hypnotized, and their brains were turned into robots with psychic power. Now that's quite different. That involves immortal people who are something like maybe possibly government psychiatrists, you know, who have a different way of doing business. Well, you know, under war conditions, you see, their laws change. And they don't, the government, and they believe, the federal government employees, when they believe that they're like, I don't know how to explain it, desperate, maybe, because the war hasn't ended, they act as though they're civilians. They don't act as though that they're just, oh, well, you know, nigger stock that belongs to maybe a CIA major, I dare say, you know, major, you know, this is a science fiction character, although this is probably what had happened. They probably believed that people that were too young to be employed by the government were, without being racist or hatred type of people, you know, that hate people.
So you used to do heroin?
Because of war desperation. They believe that some people are like, they don't believe that they're a gangster or a criminal. Oh, no, no. Because that's what a judge believes. If people are sentenced to prison, they believe whatever amount of time that you're in jail, you don't get paid any work if you're guilty of a crime as an adult. You know what I'm saying? When your brain's full, right? You know, that's different. That doesn't involve any type of, you know, racist problems or anything else. There's not one of a trillion chance, you know. But that's different. They understand that, you know. See, you know, when the wars go on too long, what I'm trying to tell you, is not only do they waste money, that they change the laws regarding civilians. See, a civilian, it isn't a nigger animal of any race or religion or country or citizenship, you know, or whether adults or children, that government employees walk up to you quite commonly to say, well, you know, I'm tired of that nigger. It's the same as if I own that nigger. And I understand that nigger's never had any citizenship rights because he belonged to a major. And I'm a retired captain from the state police in any state. And I believe my power and authority to be up and above a real CIA possible major. You know, this doesn't involve possibly, oh, if I start General's son who I live with, you know, this had nothing to do with Mr. Dwight, who looked like Dwight D. Eisenhower, or possibly Mr. Dwight, who ran an ad in the newspaper who I was just renting in Jonestown, Texas, probably thought, you know, I maybe, this is the way I imagine he might have thought of himself, because this is the way Mr. Dwight acted. I may be a 20-year-old or 22-year-old first lieutenant in the U.S. Army, and I don't have time to make decisions about people that are possibly, I guess, the lower rank of lieutenant has been the second lieutenant. I don't know. I have no study of the military of any country, you know, because I've never worked at like a military base or something, and I don't have enough time to decide what people do for themselves. And this is, you know, why I have this big, huge scar here, not involving Mr. Dwight, from construction work in an inner city where I drank some water, you know. I have black skin, have white skin man, as I've told gastroenterologists and other people before they did the surgery on me, you know, when I talked with them for a few minutes telling them why I was sick, you know. This is probably what only maybe they know about, you know. But, you know, some people, they have what they call an overreaction, and nobody knows why. And I didn't think it's because not any people knew who my real father and mother were, because I was adopted as an infant, and I had my stepdad's name on my driver's license. And, there's many millions of people that are born that way every 10 years on this planet. And I didn't think it was because maybe one of a billion chance that I might have been some four-star general from some state or country, his son, and Mr. Dwight, he just had too much work to do. And when you see someone living in a mobile home, for people that are full-grown adults that don't act as though that they're hallucinating, it isn't like maybe where I imagine a five-star, they're not hallucinating a brand new mansion maybe with 20 acres of fine trim lawns, like, somewhere wherever Mr. Dwight and his relatives are from, the way that former two-time president of the United States, maybe his only son, who looked like an exact carbon copy of his father, according to history books I've seen. I very respectfully say, I don't need to be like having people doing what they call, overreacting, But then there comes a time, in everyone's life when people, when they have a problem with other people, I don't like saying the story. The only reason I'm mentioning the story is because my heart hurts me tonight, more so than any other night, and I don't know why. Although, some people, when they say, when they find people dead from a heart attack or something, they usually act like, there's that worthless nigger animal who just born out of common middle class, and I never walked up to anybody and said, excuse me, I'm a billionaire's son, or I'm a general's son, I guess Mr. Dwight probably thought that I was kind of like a custodian, at someone's mansion, and he had hired me because he knew that I hadn't been financially victimized, and I could afford to go to something other than maybe a $300,000 or $400,000 office building and do my cleaning every night or something, and still be important enough and have a respectable past, where I wasn't victimized too much since I was a 6-year-old. And, Mr. Dwight and I, we never argued. I tipped him what would be about $500. I saved his filthy, stinking garbage dump, mobile home, and it looked and smelled almost like brand new, after a month I was there, Although, I think what the problem is with some people is that when they have what I call an overreaction, I don't know how to explain it because of the pain in my chest. It causes my brain to go haywire about up to 3 or 4 days at a time, and I almost never, the last 15 years, anywhere get enough time to recover. What I imagine to be 2 or 3 weeks with no pains in my chest, Although, anyways, to get back to the story, though, what I'm trying to say is that, I don't think that people, after that 1991 episode, after I did leave Texas, should have turned me into just another one of the millions of people in the United States that are costing billions of dollars of money for ways every year. Some of them they're having psychic problems. Most of them are having maybe problems with their own health because of what they did to their own health. From smoking cigarettes or alcoholism, or sometimes they're injured while working. To millions of Americans, according to the newspapers, have been injured while working, and sometimes very, very mysteriously. Cost money to fix their health is what I'm trying to say. But apparently, I guess that due to what happened to General MacArthur, because Harry Truman fired him, a Democrat man, he's not in the Republican capital, but a Republican governor, as far as I know, he's a governor, man, at the state capital, right? Well, I don't know, I guess it's the same story about, I dare say, I'm happy, as I told many people during my life, that I never bound an officer from any country, or legally or technically I've ever, done a crime against them, like I never shot a gun, at the police, you know what I'm saying? I mean, or I've never, pulled a weapon or tried to attack them with a weapon, you know what I'm saying? I didn't commit mentally retarded psychopathic suicide by walking up to government employees anywhere on earth, whether they're having a war against, this country or not, and be a common, like, tourist civilian or something, that has an illegal weapon in his pocket, because you're not a policeman, you have to, like, in most countries, they don't allow people that are civilians even to carry a pistol, unless maybe that they're a civilian from that country, and they have what I imagine to be like the way it is here in the States with the gun owner permit. You know, like, see, I don't own a gun since I'm a 14-year-old. And, you know, for any sane police, you know, there's no way that I can be a threat to any sane policeman on this planet. You know, because simply they have